Hi everyone, this is Shelley Cavanna of Cora's Quilts, and today I'm coming to you from my home quilting studio to chat about my favorite applique method, the raw edge fusible web backed applique. Now, applique is not a word we use very often here at Cora's Quilts. It may seem a bit intimidating at first glance, but this is a fun technique to play with, and with the help of this fusible backing product, this one right here, which I'm going to be showing you in just a few minutes, it's actually really super easy. Now, if you've tried applique before, then chances are you probably already have a favorite method. And in fact, any of my patterns that use an applique element will tell you to simply attach the applique in place using the method of your choice. Because really, there's no wrong or right answer for how to applique. It's just your personal preference. If you've never tried applique before, then I think that this method, which happens to be my personal favorite, is a great place to start. And in fact, if you're joining us over on my blog for our Samhain mini quilt along, we are working this week on this very applique block, the moon block center. And the technique that I'm about to show you is a perfect fit for making this block. So let's take a quick look at this finished block. We have a circle that's been attached to the center of a square. And if you can kind of see, and you really can't, which is kind of awesome, that my edge here is actually a raw edge of the applique. I did not take my fabric and fold it over as I was sewing. I simply cut out some fabric, put some backing on it, and then heat fused it into place. Now, if you're going for a bit of a rugged, frayed look around the edges of your applique element, you could absolutely just cut out the circle from a piece of fabric, stitch it into place, maybe even just kind of around the perimeter or the inside of the circle, and just let it fray naturally. But usually my own personal preference with applique is that I'm looking for a more finished edge that won't fray. But I don't want to have to take the time to turn those edges under. And so I'm able to achieve this finished look with crisp edges by using double-sided fusible web backing. So let's take a minute to gather our supplies. To applique using this method, you'll need double-sided fusible backing of your choice, a fabric pencil if you're hand tracing your templates, your applique template, a set of fabric scissors, the fabric for your applique shape and for your block background. Make sure that you press it and let it cool before getting started. And you'll need an iron. And you'll also need thread if you'd like to add this decorative stitching here around the edges. I like to match my top thread to the applique fabric and my bobbin thread to my background. And lastly, links to everything we'll talk about in this video, from where to purchase the double-sided fusible backing and the patterns we've showcased in this video, to the fabric we've used in our sample, and links to sign up for our emailed newsletter can all be found in the video description field below here on YouTube. All right, let's get started. The particular product for my fusible backed applique that I prefer is the Steam A Seam 2 by the Warm Company. And this particular brand comes either in the form of 9 by 12 inch sheets, or it also comes in a 3-yard roll that is 24 inches wide, which is real handy if you need to applique a larger shape. And any of the fabric or quilt shops you already shop at will most likely carry this product or a similar product. We carry the Steam A Seam 2 sheets as one of our favorite notions in our online shop, and you can find a whole variety of these products on Amazon as well. I've chosen to demo with this brand because it's what I've always used, and I'm always really happy with the results. For smaller applique shapes, I really prefer to use these individual sheets. In fact, I trim them down to 8.5 by 11 inches and just print my template directly from my computer onto the sheet with my laser printer. And that way I don't have to mess around with tracing at all. It is really important to mention here that this shape is actually going to be fused to the wrong side of your fabric like this. So if you're using any sort of a directional shape that you're trying to applique, say like a letter or a word, you want to make sure that you reverse your image when you put it on your fusible backing, so that when you fuse it to the fabric and cut it out, when you flip it over, you'll have your right side image in place. If you're using a symmetrical shape, though, like a circle, you don't have to worry about that at all. And in fact, this is for our smaller Samhain moon blocks. You can print this circle template directly from your pattern onto the 8.5 by 11 sheet of fusible backing. If you're making one of our larger Samhain quilt blocks, you will need to trace your circle onto a bigger piece of fusible backing that's at least 16 inches or so. All right, so on our one side of the fusible backing, if you'll take a look at this, it might be kind of hard to see on screen, but on one side there is almost kind of a fabric-y layer to the backing, and then when you flip the paper over, you can see that it's kind of more of a papery side with a grid printed on it. And this grid side is the side where you want to either trace or print your template block. And so once you've got it transferred onto your fusible webbing, then I like to take my circle or my shape or whatever I'm appliquing, and I like to just roughly cut it out. You want to make sure that you leave a good half inch or maybe a quarter inch around the perimeter of your shape. And again, if you're using our Samhain template ease, you'll see that that quarter inch perimeter is marked here already for you with this dashed line. Before going any further, make sure that you've given your applique fabric a good pressing. According to the Steam A-Seam 2 manufacturer's recommendations, you do not want to use any starcher sprays when you're pressing your fabric, so just heat. And then once you're ready, you are going to make sure that your wrong side of your fabric is facing up. And then you are going to, here's our print side with the gridded, you're going to flip your template over and you are going to gently peel the paper away there. And then you're going to go ahead and position it where you want it on your fabric. And it's a little sticky here, a little tacky. It's just enough that you can kind of smooth things down. And when you've got it to where you want it, and make sure that you are happy with the placement of the pattern on the back, you're going to take this over and you are going to, leaving the gridded paper still intact, you're going to give this a good press on your iron. All right, I am back and I just finished giving this a good 20-second press with my iron, and I know I'm ready to go because it's cooled and my paper's not lifting into place. And so now that we've got our wrong sides fused together, the next step is that you're going to gently cut out your applique shape. And now I want to make sure that you know that you should be cutting very, very slowly and carefully at this point, because these cuts that you are making are going to be the finished edge of your applique. So make sure that you use a really good pair of sharp applique scissors. I happen to like these little butterfly scissors myself. Or if you would like to, you can try using, and again, this is not necessary, I just happen to have this Olfa rotary circle cutter in stock here, and it's almost just like the compass that you used in math. It's got a real sharp point that you put here in the center of your circle and then spin around, and the rotary blade here will cut out a perfect circle for you. Okay, after you have carefully cut out your applique circle, it's going to be time to peel back the gridded side. Now, sometimes this can be real tricky, so you can try and see it at the edge if you can kind of slip a fingernail under and peel the paper off. But I find that if I try too hard and work around the edges, that I end up kind of fraying my circle, and again, that's not the look that I want. So what I can do instead is take just one of my everyday pins and just kind of real gently score a line across the back, and then you can kind of fold that in half and tear your paper away just real carefully like this. And this side again is going to be real sticky, so not so sticky that it won't pop off of your cutting mat, but now that it's ready to go, you're ready to attach it to your background material. Okay, once you have finished peeling your paper away, you are ready to stick your applique circle onto its background square. Now, I've taken the time, because I'm hoping that my circle will end up nicely in the middle of this square, I've taken the time with my friction marker, which is a heat-soluble marker. It means as soon as I iron over this, the lines are going to disappear. I've taken the time to kind of mark my 4 center points here along each edge. You could do this at home just by finger pressing, but I wanted you to be able to see the marks here on camera. And I've done the same thing for my circle blocks, so you can see I can just take a minute to fiddle around here and get everything nice and lined up. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but when I'm got it lined up as much as I'm happy with, then we kind of stick it into place. And again, before you iron it, the backing of this orange piece is about as sticky as a Post-it note. And so you can kind of tack it into place, and then when you're ready, you take it right over to your iron. And again, you're going to iron over the top, making sure that you're pressing down with your iron. You don't want to be moving the iron back and forth because that could be distorting your block. So take it over, give it a good 20-second press or so, and then we'll be back. Okay, once you have used your iron to permanently fuse your block into place, your applique block isn't going anywhere, so you can kind of shake it, you could kind of peel at the edges. If you wanted to, you could just leave this circle just as is and consider it finished. However, if you'd like, you can also go back and add some decorative stitching, either by hand or with your machine, to give your block a really polished, finished look. For a nice, clean, modern look, you could absolutely just single stitch around very neatly a nice circle here, or for more of a whimsical look, you could kind of do some kind of wonky circles here, a couple of layers to give it kind of more of a playful feel. My personal preference is to use the overlock stitch on my sewing machine to sew just around the edge. I like it because it gives the illusion of having taken the time to blanket stitch it by hand without having to do it by hand, which is always a bonus for me. I also like to use a nice 50 weight polyester thread for my applique overstitching. I like that it kind of gives things a little bit of a texture, but that it also kind of fades into the background and kind of disappears too. So the thread that I've used up in the spool of my machine matches the front of the applique, where I've used a neutral thread in the back that matches my neutral background. And you can see it just kind of fades there back into the distance, and it gives it a nice texture and a little bit of visual interest without detracting from all the hard work you've just done. So this wraps up our tutorial for the raw edged fusible web backed applique. I hope it's eased a bit of your fear or your reluctance about trying this technique, and I hope that you've enjoyed this and our other Cora's Quilts tutorials. If you have, please consider hitting the subscribe button here on the YouTube channel. For more tricks, tips, and quilting tutorials, you can visit our website at www.corasquilts.com. Links for all the products we've used here in this video can be found in the video description field below. And thanks for stopping by. We'll see you soon.